Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. For the benefit of those listening to the audio, you're listening to my Ask James stream, where every week I invite questions from the YouTube community to ask me anything football related, and I will do my best to get everyone covered. So, fixtures are out. I'm expecting probably quite a few questions on those, although it's worth saying me and Sid will take a deeper dive into fixtures on tomorrow's podcast as well. Right, let's get into the community chat. Let's see who's asking questions. FPL Integrity is in. Hello. Lee Jackson says, with United and City blanking, is Kane anywhere near being back in your thoughts? Wow, didn't I just know that Spurs questions were going to come straight away? I won't be starting with any Spurs players. I'll tell you that now with almost certainty that I will not be starting with any Spurs players. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't. And yes, I'm well aware the talk of the community this morning is Spurs have the best opening run of fixtures. Spurs, very interestingly, have only Manchester United to play from the traditional Big Six in the first 8 fixtures, and also only Manchester United to play from that so-called Big Six in the final 10 fixtures as well. It does mean the middle of the season is pretty fucked up. November and December looks, let's say, tough, to put it mildly. So, yeah, I can completely see the attraction of Spurs to people on the fixtures. Decent form after lockdown from that perspective in terms of results, 2 points per game. That's the minimum that I'd want from those first eight games. Look, Dyer, Son, Kane, all decent options. It won't be for me until I see something that makes me feel different emotionally to what I'm watching. That's my general feeling. We spoke about this on one of the pods earlier in the week. Forgive me, I can't remember if it was a Patreon pod or not, but I described Kane, for example, as someone who was scoring 70% of games, and he'll probably score 1 in 70% of games. Is that enough for a captaincy for you? I don't see where the 10.5 million investment is there enough for me to feel I have the confidence to captain him when there's going to be so many great options from other teams as well in terms of more explosiveness. Son, he's very nicely priced at 9 million. If anyone wants to start with him, I'm not particularly going to argue against it. I do strongly believe that Eric Dyer will be a better choice than Ben Davies. I've been over this a number of times. Basically, straight after the Palace game, I said next season, if Hugo Lloris is 5.5 million, we'll get to the launch and everyone will stop talking about Lloris and they'll start talking about Dyer. And that's exactly what's happened. Eric Dyer is first choice centre-half for Tottenham. He's ahead of Sanchez. He's ahead of Alderweireld. Do not doubt that for a moment. Eric Dyer is locked for Spurs at centre-half as long as he is fit or until he suffers serious loss in form. Ben Davies obviously offers an alternative, but Ben Davies doesn't cross the halfway line. Ben Davies is also, in my opinion, quite liable to pick up more bookings because if Spurs get counter-attacked on, it is a necessity to break that counter-attack immediately. If that means taking yellow cards, that is what will happen. And the 2 fullbacks and the 2 central midfield players are those who are most likely to pick it up because they want those bookings to be dished out before it even gets to the likes of Dyer, and I suspect Alderweireld, subject to opponent, will probably be the first choice 2 centre-halves. Based on what we've got at the start, I would suggest it will be Dyer and Alderweireld at the start of the season. Everton, Southampton, Newcastle, Man United, West Ham, Burnley, the first 6. The 2 that would be there from a concern point of view in terms of pace would be United and West Ham in game week 5. West Ham because of Antonio, United obviously plenty of options. You might find that Sanchez would come in for those games, but I expect it to be Dyer and Alderweireld at the start. I think Dyer can be a bit of a bonus point magnet, very similar to go and look at Phil Jones' numbers from 17-18 for United. If he'd have stayed fit for the whole season, he would have ended up with a monster haul of points. So I can see Eric Dyer in 1-0 Spurs wins getting 8 and 9 pointers. He's not going to be doing the sort of stuff that Trent does. I get that. He's not going to get many attacking returns. Can he offer you consistency and a bit of a bonus point magnet? Yes. If you want to start with a Spurs defender, my advice would be Eric Dyer. If you want to start with Harry Kane, go for it. If you want to start with Heung-min Son, go for it. I won't be doing it. Bradley Parker's in, says afternoon. Eric Forden says, hey, James, what are your thoughts on Dean this year? I know Everton have been average. If they sign some midfielders, is he an option at all? I feel as though he has a lot of avenues to points. Do you know what? I nearly predicted that we was going to have Everton first game because they were the one team that I kind of really highlighted on Monday's podcast. I went, I don't care what their fixtures will be. I'm going nowhere near them.
It's basically how I feel about it at the moment. And as soon as I said that, I thought, fucking, that's going to slap me in the face. Tottenham, Everton, first game, I could predict it. Their opening is good. Tottenham, West Brom, Crystal Palace, Brighton is a decent first four. I can see the temptation. But I also said I don't give a shit about their fixtures. Won't be going anywhere near them till I see something that changes my opinion on them being, at the moment, in need of mass overhaul of players. Luca Dean is the same price as Matt Doherty. Just take that for a moment. And we suddenly, because Wolves have got Sheffield United and Man City in the first two. Look beyond Man City and look at Wolves fixtures from game week 3 onwards for a period. It's just not even that's not a conversation, in my opinion. Doherty versus Dean at the same price. It's not a conversation. Richarlison, 8 million at some point might prove worthwhile. Same with DCL and Moise Kean. I've said that, but it won't be at the start for me. No interest in Everton at all. Joe Jenkins is in. Hello, mate. Angus McPhail says, afternoon, James. Hope you're well. After the fixture reveal for you, who has gone up and down the most in terms of ownership interest? Well, Burnley and Villa, not that Villa were particularly on my radar, but obviously the one thing that kept getting overlooked with United and City likely to blank game week 1, and we don't know it officially yet, but it's 95% likely they will. It was obviously going to have an impact on 2 other teams as well. I don't mind the fact that it's impacted Burnley because they're really interesting because game week 2 is Leicester away as well, which doesn't look great. Southampton, Newcastle, West Brom, the 3 after that, and then Tottenham. They're not bad actually. So Charlie Taylor, Chris Wood, still very much in my thoughts, but I can't start with Chris Wood now. I don't think. I think that's probably one to come back to. So it might be, for example, that I'd look at maybe even Antonio, game week 1, Bosch, Newcastle at home. Thank you very much. See you later. I'll go back to Wood. Although West Ham's fixture list is awful, Antonio is one of those players I feel like he's a little bit fixture proof to it. He's returned well in big games in the past where West Ham have less of the ball. They target him. They go a little bit more direct and in behind. That's to his strengths anyway. Actually, when West Ham have more of the ball, it doesn't suit Antonio. The bigger the pitch for a game in him and the more space in behind, the better. So oddly enough, I'm not put off Antonio just as yet. I put off Souček a bit more, but then I'm probably happy to pay the extra 0.5 and for him to be my 5th midfielder and a sub. It's probably my immediate thoughts. Burnley's the interesting one. Obviously, I'm put off by Arsenal's really interesting at the start, those first 2 game weeks. Fulham, West Ham, and then it's a difficult run. But then you just look at that and go, right, Aubameyang, and then I'll move to, most likely, it looks obvious, City at the moment, doesn't it? Skip City for the blank and Wolves, and then move in. It's what a lot of people are going to be thinking early on. What I want to do this year is look at having some consistent performance. So people like Doherty, I'm just not bothered at the moment that it's Sheffield United and Man City to start. He's going in. I'm not going to think, I'll go back to him game week 3. I'm wasting the transfer there as far as I'm concerned. So the fixtures actually hasn't changed too much in my mind. Genuinely, the team that is obviously influencing most people, and I understand it, is Tottenham. I do understand it from the fixture perspective. It's just not good for my mental state. That's the main thing. It's not good for my mental state at the moment to have Tottenham assets while Mourinho's playing a certain brand of football. That's not how you should manage your FPL teams. Genuinely, Dyer, Son, Kane are all decent options for you. And if you prefer Davis to Dyer, it's fine. They're the 4. Don't get clever about it. Don't start thinking about Bergwijn and Lucas. Go for the main guys or don't go at all. And for me, it'll be don't go at all until something changes my mind, basically, on the first 2 fixtures, Everton, Southampton, and it's Newcastle against Man United. I don't see me moving. I just don't want it. I just don't want it. And it's a personal opinion. You have to understand this is genuinely the truth. When you ask me about Spurs at the moment, I will give you the truth, but you're also probably, until something changes my mind, you're going to get negative bias from me in terms of the way I'm reacting. And you're probably going to take on board the fact that I don't want the players. I don't want the players in my FPL team at the moment. I'd just rather not bother. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't. I can definitely see the appeal of attacking those 3 Tottenham players, like I've said. Joe Jenkins, are you considering starting with any blankers on your bench, a Foden or a Greenwood, or possibly cheap enough to sit there, wait for the double and still allow a good enough game week 1 team? Yeah, definitely something to think about, because with United, I look at it afterwards, the blank, and I think Palace, Brighton, Tottenham, Newcastle I really don't want to waste time and get into them. So I think the idea of, say, Aubameyang to De Bruyne / Sterling in game week 3 appeals. And it does appeal to start with a Martial or a Fernandes, actually. I need to look at. I haven't played with my team this morning. I've been recording a quiz with Suj for our patrons, so I've not had the time to look into it. But that's my initial thoughts. That yes, I may start with one, maybe even two. The more annoying one is actually Charlie Taylor, because he was one where I was happy for him to sit there as third sub for most game weeks. Now I possibly need to give that some extra thought, because what I don't want to do is potentially myself one United, one Man City, and one Burnley on the bench. There's too many. I think if there's a strong intention to play these guys in game week 2, and you're possibly going to want to add a third or a fourth as well, it's okay. It's okay to do it, because you've got to remember everybody else is going to be about United City game week 1 as well. As long as you're covered off, I think immediate thoughts are on Arsenal, Liverpool. You might even take the example to look at Liverpool. Start with Leeds, which is unpredictable at the moment. It might be a tougher game than what it looks on paper. Then Chelsea, Arsenal, and actually you've got Everton in game week 5, Sheffield United in game week 6. It's not the best opening run of fixtures. You've got to remember Liverpool playing Everton is different for everybody else playing Everton. So it's not the best starts. You could even look at that as well. Are you prepared to be brave enough even to go, right, well, I'll go Salah or Mane in game week 1, and then I'm happy to take a hit or two to take them out? That's going to be one of the big debates. One of the things, that, and we'll talk about this more on Monday's podcast, I do not want to wildcard early. I really think there's going to be strong benefits in holding the first wildcard as late as possible, probably even to the last opportunity in game week 16. So don't want to be wildcarding early. So for me, I need to balance something over a long period of time. So I've gone into the last couple of seasons targeting basically a team for 4 game weeks. And you shouldn't necessarily look too far beyond that. But people like Doherty, Trent, Robertson, and probably De Bruyne, who I know that I definitely want for the duration of the season, in my opinion at the moment, obviously that opinion could change. I'm not looking fixtures. They're still going in. De Bruyne, obviously, because he's going to blank game week 1's a little bit different. Just while I mentioned that on the point as well. City's opening fixtures don't look brilliant. Wolves, Leicester, Leeds, Arsenal as the first 4 between game weeks 2 and 5. They look a lot more like Kevin De Bruyne fixtures to me than Raheem Sterling. And I was sort of hoping that was going to go the other way to get a little bit of more of a split in terms of the ownership. But that just leans into De Bruyne more. Although I think it's great that City and United look like they're going to blank in game week 1. You had people with De Bruyne, etc., who are going to have really high ownership. And it's going to be interesting to see what people do now. I need to give it some proper thought, and I'll be very honest, I haven't as yet. In terms of Greenwoods or Fodens, yeah, I generally think if it's the right one, you definitely want that player in game week 10. You don't mind leaving it for 1 week. It's okay. I need to give it some thought. Therefore, I think it's definitely okay to leave a Greenwood or a Foden as long as you've still got a strong first 11 in game week 1. If that's what you want to do, I think that's absolutely fine. Paul Meehan says, morning, James. Morning, chat. Don't know where you are, Paul. It ain't morning in my world, mate. Except I know it really is morning where you are. Any thoughts of how many players from City United you would consider starting with on the bench to preserve the wildcard for later on? Just covered exactly that, obviously, Paul. Bruce, with lots of numbers in his chat name, says hello, Bruce. Mishia Hodder, hi, James. With City blanking in the first game week, is ignoring De Bruyne the first game week a good idea, considering starting with Aubameyang in game week 1 and then switching to De Bruyne in game week 3? It's kind of what I've just discussed, actually. There couldn't have been a better fixture to miss De Bruyne for, I think, in game week 2 than Wolves. Genuinely. We've given City some problems, right? They beat them twice last year. Admittedly, the second time was heavily influenced by a red card in that match in December. But you know that City, they won't tear Wolves apart. Now, look, City could win 2-0 and De Bruyne could get a goal and assist. That's capable in any game. But it feels like Wolves away, game week 2. It does feel like a decent one to miss. Skip one more to go without. And then have it preset in mind to go straight back in for Leicester, which wouldn't give me the fear in match day 3. And I think a lot of people would still think, oh, it's still Leicester, they're all right. And And then it's Arsenal in match day 5. I mean, De Bruyne normally does bits to Arsenal, doesn't he, in fairness? So, yeah, I think that's an absolute fair strategy. And then from that point of view, Mashia, exactly like you said, Aubameyang with Fulham, West Ham, and then Liverpool feels like, and Sheffield United afterwards for Aubameyang as well, feels absolutely spot on. And, yeah, I can see Aubameyang's ownership taking a jump from what it is currently. Tim Lum, Bruno Fernandes bench fodder for game week 1? Question. Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. What you don't want to be doing, I don't think, is leaving De Bruyne and Fernandes on your bench in game week 1, for example. I think it would be better off making sure you've got like Salah and Aubameyang in there, and then taking the hit to change if you want to move off Salah, for example. That's going to be a better play, in my opinion, or even leaving that money. If you think there's someone you really want to target in game week 1 who's cheaper, and you think they've got a good game week 1 fixture, but I don't really want any of them in game week 2, for example, you might look at, I don't know, perhaps a bad example, I think perhaps like Ziyech, who's a cheaper, you think, oh, Brighton away, fancy that. Might want to jump off for Liverpool in game week 2. You wouldn't go down that route because Chelsea actually have got a good couple of fixtures after game week 2. If you start with them, West Brom, Palace, Southampton, follow Liverpool in match day 2. But yeah, it's. I think it's okay. That's where a little bit where the Sky players will understand is that planning of holding the money to move it to make a future move. I hope that's something that's going to benefit me in FPL this year, because we all have that impulsive nature. I've got 100 million. I have to spend that 100 million. Absolute certainty that we all should probably be leaving even 0.5 in the bank when we start. And do you know what? The majority of us won't. The majority of us won't. There will be other people who have to flip it out, like, you've got 100 million, you've got to spend 100 million. If it's planned right and it helps you with a future move, leave the money. I would, if I know once I've looked at it that I want to make a direct move in from one player to another, and it means leaving 3 million in the bank in game week 1, I will do that. That is also easier said than done, though. Water Recluse, best way to manage this City and United price rises in game week 2. Get on them. The thing is, you say that, right? A lot of the early markets quite often are influenced by, away from the YouTube community, Twitter community, etc. Influenced by, I'm telling you, a lot of people will start with the likes of De Bruyne, unbelievably, who will see that he's not playing game week 1 and panic and sell him. Genuinely. And our small bubble would all be going, right, we push to City, Man United. That's a conscious thing you need to be aware of. Yes, we're all going to be pushing towards City and Manchester United in game week 2, particularly with the likes of Chelsea playing Liverpool, Southampton playing Tottenham, Man City playing Wolves. There's some fixtures there where there's teams that you like and you're suddenly thinking, obviously I'm not referring to City, I'm referring to Wolves. There's 5 teams there who look like they've got a harder game week 2 fixture potentially than game week 1. So that can throw some doubt into your mindset. This year, I think I really need to stay away from early transfers and just accept I'm not going to be able to meet people on value. Because if you think that what's happening in society, if you're outside England, if you think we're out of the woods with COVID-19, etc., we are absolutely not. And I don't think it's improbable that the Premier League would be stopped at some point. So early transfers is not on my radar. Absolutely not at all. Certainly not until we're in a position where, say, fans are getting back into the ground, I think. I would rather, if I'm 100% sure that I know I want to make a transfer and news-wise, it doesn't look like we're under threat of anything getting worse, then yeah, fine. I suspect that's not going to be between game week 1 and game week 2, however. HB Haller 11, hi James, first choice backline for Spurs this season, and who would be your FPL pick regardless of the price? Davis, Alderweireld, Dyer, Aurier, or Aurier's replacement is the first choice back 4. I don't think we'll see too much for back 5 again. Saw one laughable thread earlier today that suggested that Dyer is first choice in a back 3. And it's the sort of thing that makes me really fucking angry, because I don't think we'll be doing that sort of shit again. I fucking hope not anyway. So, yeah, there's a chance that Spurs will change it right back. So, again, if anyone's got Aurier in their minds, I would be very, very cautious of that. I wouldn't even be surprised if Aurier started the season and then was sold before the end of the window if Spurs got a replacement in. I think that's quite feasible, actually. So I'd be very cautious of that. Definitely Dyer for me from the back line. Davis offers an alternative. If you prefer Davis, that's absolutely fine. Tim Lum, Bayern or PSG? Well, I certainly hope it's Bayern, and I think it will be Bayern as well. I'm looking forward to that on Sunday. Should be a cracking game of football. I'll be honest, I didn't watch either of the semi-finals. I know Lyon were a little bit unfortunate. They had chances. Bayern are particularly susceptible to counter-attacks, but they're also devastating with their power. This is the best team we've seen in Europe for a number of years. This Bayern team, in my opinion, is better than the Real Madrid team that won 3 Champions Leagues in a row. That's probably very harsh. I think if Bayern played that Real Madrid team, they would do them 1 over. They've got the best left back on the planet now. They've probably got the best right back. They've got the best goalkeeper. They've got a midfield that is multifunctional. Between them all, they can do a little bit of everything defensively and offensively. They do leave themselves open, but it's the style of the way they play. You've got people like Gnabry, who nobody can really believe how good he's become. And Lewandowski is a killer in front of goal. I said after they'd done us 7-2, which feels all right considering Barca's 8-2 in hindsight. The one thing that really struck me coming out of that was that Lewandowski was a much, much better footballer than I thought he was. He's got everything, absolutely everything. Was it a stat I saw that he's only 6 or 7 games he's actually failed to score in all season? That's a proper FPL captain there. Yeah, I hope Bayern win. Definitely hope Bayern win. There's obviously the outside stuff of PSG, which I don't think anyone's a particular lover of. And I can't fucking stand Neymar. Wonderful player, but I just can't stand him and the theatrics and stuff. So I definitely hope that Bayern win. And I think that they will. Interesting though, if PSG are clever and they accept conceding possession a bit and retreat, they can definitely do Bayern on the counter attack. Or Recluse, top 6 order this season? Question. Well, I think if Chelsea buy a goalkeeper, it might actually finish 3rd. Actually, but if they don't, I don't think they don't matter what they spend elsewhere. Genuinely, fucking hell. Liverpool to win the league, it'd be very close, very, very close. I've changed my mind on this a little bit. So I just think City are too weak defensively and too weak in central midfield. I don't think Nathan Ake fixes problems for them personally. So Liverpool but I don't think Liverpool get anywhere near the points they got last year. I think it will be a lower total this year. I think probably 90 to 92 points. It'll be less this year, I think. But I obviously expect City to improve on last year. I don't know if they can do quite enough. Then United, then Chelsea. And probably 5th or 6th Arsenal, Tottenham. Probably depends a lot on what the 2 teams do in cup competitions as well. Remember, both are in the Europa League. So if one goes very deep in Europa and the other doesn't, that could have an influence come the end of the season. I think Arsenal, Tottenham very close. Hard to see Leicester being in it again after their performance in the second half of last season. The one you'd fancy is obviously Wolves, who were in top 6 for so much of the season, thought they could really push for 4th at one stage. So Wolves would be the one that you'd fear from the outside of making it in more than Leicester, I think, at the moment. So, but the Wolves' problem is consistency against weaker opposition. And goals, I suspect, a little bit in this period. Really interesting one to watch when they come back, actually, to see if they feel energised or not. I suspect the fact they've got 2 difficult opening fixtures, Sheffield United and Man City, is probably a good thing for them. They might not feel it looking at it on paper, but it's probably a good thing to get them right. Okay, motivated, right back in it, in off the off, because it finished very flat for them. So having fixtures, obviously they lost late to Sheffield United in lockdown, so they'll be motivated to do something about that. And you have to be motivated against Man City. I'm not questioning their motivation, by the way. I'm just saying you can go into that with that negative spiralling feeling. I think those 2 fixtures are actually good fixtures for Wolves in terms of getting them back up and running. So I would not be surprised if Wolves finished above Tottenham and Arsenal. It's not particularly to discount them. It's consistency. That's the key. And actually, Tottenham or Arsenal can quite easily finish in the top 4 this year. It's all about consistency. Chelsea and United will both have sloppy results. I'm convinced about that. Cole JB, afternoon all, loving the game week 1 fixture carnage. I can't disagree with that at all, Cole. Arif is in, says hello. So too Joe Finley Badder. So's Niz. Sandish Dakal. Afternoon, James. Spurs defence for FPL. Yeah, you've obviously asked that question a little while ago. I've obviously covered it. Adam Francis afternoon, James. If you had to pick one of Son and Kane with a gun to your head, who would it be? Harry Kane. Ronan Megan, hi James. What are your thoughts on leaving money in the bank? 1-2 million going to game week 1 to allow more freedom for transfer midweek 2-3 when we have more information? Yeah, covered that, Ronan. And a non-FPL question, but if you could swap Mourinho for Eddie Howe right now, would you and why? No, I wouldn't, because Eddie Howe managed 5 years in the Premier League and couldn't get a team to concede less than 60 goals basically in a season. So no, I wouldn't. Eddie Howe is not going to make Tottenham Hotspur better, in my opinion. I don't like what Mourinho's doing. I've said it over and over, several times over, but which one's more likely to give me success in the short term? It's Mourinho. I accept that. So no, I wouldn't. And actually, we had this question on a podcast a little while ago, and I did answer that exactly the same way. Eddie Howe needs a break from football. Eddie Howe will come back into football somewhere, and I'm sure will do very, very well. I don't think a higher profile job like Tottenham is necessarily the right answer. He has a philosophy, but I also think it's a philosophy that's worked well with minimum pressure, minimum expectation from own fan base, etc. Minimum expectation in terms of what the player's expectation is within that football club. And also, the other slightly concerning thing with Eddie Howe is transfer record. He's not good. When he spent the money, not a lot of it's come off really so far. So I can see Eddie Howe going back in will be a good thing for him, I think, when a club's kind of on a low point. You know, if we're sitting here West Ham this time next season and they finish 16th, I think that's it'd be the right sort of appointment for West Ham, long-term future. Okay, young coach, this is the way we want to go, whether it works or not, go and try and go down that route. Or perhaps higher end the Championship. To be confirmed, but Eddie Howe, the thing is as well, right, and let's be very honest about this, Eddie Howe has got no chance of getting a Big Six job. Certain of it. He's just been relegated from the Premier League. Red Hot YT, as a first spot off the bench, would you rather Souček or Stevens with 0.5 in the bank? Souček, he's beyond the joke now. It's real. He is capable of being a new Marouane Fellaini. I think he's a brilliant, brilliant price. They obviously have a fucking disastrous fixture list, West Ham. It is... Genuinely, they're going to do well not to be bottom of the league come the end of October. It is a disastrous start of it. Nobody's got it worse. It's clear as mud that they've got it worse. However, I probably know that that's the fifth choice midfielder I want. And the only thing, if I'm not going to go, say, 3-5-2 or 4-5-1, then the only thing I really want from that midfielder to start with is for him to be available, and he's going to get me the points if he comes off the bench, be it the 2 points, whatever. Further down the line, obviously the flip is they've got a bad fixture run, but guess what that means come November, etc. It looks a lot better. And I'm not sure that's the sort of transfer that I really want to be wasting at that point. I might like the idea of just having him there. Dale Stevens, is Dale Stevens 5? If Dale Stevens is 5, then no. Excuse me. If Dale Stevens 4.5 and I feel like he is, then that's fine. I actually like Bissouma as an alternative, one to follow with Brighton in the pre-season friendlies. The one to be careful at, the people who are thinking perhaps going Ryan and Button. You might, obviously, Bissouma would be, or Stevens would be a third Brighton player if you're thinking of going that way. Don't. One of the things we looked at, Tom Cantwell's brilliant talisman theory from Who Got the Assist on a Patreon podcast yesterday. Tom released that article on Monday. It's a must-read article. Go and read it. And we spoke about players who could break out to be the new Danny Ings this year. 3 players spring to mind: Chris Wood, Mikel Antonio, and the third one is Maupay. Don't block yourself off of Maupay. Genuinely, keep an open mind about it. Like, it's a difficult start for them. Chelsea, Newcastle, Man United is probably not going to want to start with him. Then it opens up a little bit for Brighton. And I think he's capable. He scored 10 goals last year. I think a lot of us have got it preset in our mind about him. We got him in, a lot of us got him in at a period where it looked good and it didn't go great. But actually, 10 goals in a debut Premier League season and a few assists is not bad, considering quite often he was in and out of the team. That's the other problem with Brighton, is reliability on who Potter's going to pick, by the way. You might get more consistency now you're coming into a next season. Don't block yourself. Don't block yourself. The flip of that, of course, is if you're intending to go with Antonio, and I've already said I think he might be fixture proof to a certain extent, and you go with Souček, you may also be blocking yourself if it develops like we think it might, that Ben Johnson at West Ham could well be the standout 4.0 rather than there's a lot of talk of the two Palace guys at the moment, which Nathan Ferguson played half the games at West Bromwich Albion, was obviously lined up for a while that he was going to go to Palace. I'm not certain that he gets in ahead of Joel Ward, and I'm even less certain about that if Patrick Van Aanholt's not fit for the start of the season, because then I think Tyreek Mitchell still plays at left back, and then he'll be the better choice. But I think either could be short-term resolutions. Johnson now and Ngaki has gone, Zabaleta's left the club. The fact that they ended up playing Johnson at left back, I think it was in the Watford fixture. No, it was the Aston Villa fixture, wasn't it? Game week 38. Suggests that there's enough trust in him to even play him outside a position. My West Ham correspondent, Chris, FI_FPL, I think he said to me that they can cover on either side. But I think, he's going to be pushing. Ryan Fredericks is rubbish. There's every chance Johnson will start as first choice right back for West Ham. He might be the 4.0 guy. The only flip of that is he ain't going to be smashing up in price, if that's what you're worried about with the fixtures that West Ham have got. Can't see it. But one good return in game week 1 might be enough to see that price shoot up. And people go, okay, he's the one. So worth watching from that perspective as well. But just be careful blocking yourself on clubs like Brighton and West Ham. Aidan J, interesting conundrum. Arsenal and Liverpool open with great attacking fixtures, but generally have quite difficult starts to the season. Early wild card feels likely. I feel the complete opposite. I mean, looking at Liverpool's fixtures, what's scary about it? Are we bothered about Liverpool playing Chelsea and Arsenal in game weeks 2 and 3? Are we generally bothered about it? So those corresponding fixtures, Chelsea away and Arsenal at home last year, Liverpool won 2-1 and 3-1 respectively. Are we worried about it? What are we worried about? Villa, Everton, Sheffield United afterwards. So you might think there's no clean sheets there. I look at the 3 afterwards and I think it's clean sheets there. So from Liverpool, don't really feel that perspective. From Arsenal, for me, I only be looking at Aubameyang. I think the talk of the likes of Saliba, Kieran Tierney, Rob Holding, even Leno Martinez, if they were on people's radar, unless people are generally thinking for that early wild card, you're then looking at Liverpool, Sheffield United, Man City, Leicester, game weeks 3 to 6. Doesn't look great. So, but I'm very much conscious that I don't want to be aiming for an early wild card, and I want to try and maneuver this. So quite often it feels like we have to fix the big problem at the start. It might be easier to manage it and fix the bigger problem further down the line, which is around the Christmas period and the interesting idea around game weeks 18, 19 and potential blanks and doubles, which we will look at on Monday's podcast. FPL Canals in. Brilliant tweet from FPL Canals sent earlier today, which I retweeted on my timeline as well. Just looking at teams who have big and short periods with games not against the big 6. The longest stretch period, by the way, for a team not to be playing any of the so-called big 6 actually is Fulham between game weeks 10 and game week 9. A very interesting one. And oddly enough, this is mad, but if you look at, I've only got fixtures in front of me up to game week 6. Following Arsenal, Leeds, Villa, Wolves, Sheffield United, Palace are all 5 teams who won't score a lot of goals, I'm convinced, in the Premier League this year. So I'm not saying look at Fulham defensive assets, but there is a long sustained stretch there. And Mitrovic, once people identify this, he's going to come back into people's thoughts again. Mitrovic is another one like to throw into that list with Maupay, Wood and Antonio as well, in terms of could break out. So I'm not on for the I'm fucking reading the wrong fucking question again. What I meant to say is the other team that has a short period between playing big 6 teams is Southampton. Southampton don't have any stretch in the whole season that's more than 4 games without playing big 6 opposition. So the likes of Danny Ings, Armstrong, etc., can be great consistent. I think it's absolutely fine, but it is something to be wary of. If you're looking at runs of 4 or 5 fixtures, you are constantly going to see a difficult game for Southampton on paper from the traditional big 6 during that period. But great tweet from FPL Canal. You can give him a follow
on Twitter, I'd highly recommend that. Alex Abdella says, what do you think of fan teams 200,000 first prize and its impact on the official FPL game of Sky? More people leaving to focus on fan team instead. Yeah, they can leave and play. I've got no interest, mate. If anybody wants to know the reason why, please listen to Tuesday's People's Poll. Not interested. Not interested. It's a different game as well. And you have to bear in mind it's gambling as well. So I won't be promoting it. Demetrius Giannottis, Aurea leaving. Yes, he could potentially, if Spurs get a replacement. I think Mourinho would be quite happy to have Tanganga as an understudy in that position in the short term. So Aurea will only leave if Spurs buy in that position. But as I've already said, I wouldn't be surprised if Aurea starts the season for Spurs and he doesn't make it beyond the transfer window at Spurs. That would not surprise me at all. Cole Norbury, how nailed is Loris with Hart in? Hart could be a great asset at 4.5. I presume that's a joke, Kyle. I'm not even going to dignify that by giving it an answer, mate. Mike Day, new to Sky next season. Would Dyer be a good call for Sky, passing points, etc.? No. One, we think Dyer's still going to be classified as a midfielder in Sky is one key point as well. And two, Spurs defenders are not the type that's going to be picking up passing tiers, I'm afraid, Mike. We'll do more of this as we get closer to the season for Sky listeners. But Spurs defenders, if you're targeting them for passing points, nah. The standout there would actually still be Aurea because of the tackle tiers that he could pick up, price dependent. But we think from what we've seen that Dyer's still going to be classified as a midfielder. Hopefully they amend that. But no, that wouldn't appeal to me. What appeals in FPL won't necessarily appeal to Sky and vice versa. They're two completely different games with different structures. Gravy Dave, Vardy or Werner, and what's your favourite sandwich, James? Favourite sandwich, definitely be a sausage. It's ketchup all the way. I'd eat a sausage sandwich every day. I'm a little fat bastard, aren't I? If you'd have asked me pre-fixtures, I would have said Werner, but Vardy actually, maybe, having looked at the fixtures, because even the two difficult on paper fixtures I've got in the first six, Man City, high line, springing behind, he's capable. He always tends to do quite well against Arsenal, actually, so that wouldn't put me off either. West Brom, Burnley, West Ham, Villa, the others. Might be Jamie Vardy, actually. What I don't like about Werner is at the moment, I don't know where he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to play through the middle, which I suspect is the long-term objective, or if he's going to start off the left, which also with Pulisic perhaps unlikely to make game week 1, probably strengthens that. So it could be even plays out wide for a couple of game weeks, then goes through the middle. I need to see how it equates. If I miss his points at the start, fine, I miss his points at the start. I suspect after they play Liverpool in game week 2, I'll probably know what I want to do with Timo Werner. So actually, oddly enough, I think if I was to start with one, I'd look at Vardy and know he's definitely their talisman at Leicester. That's probably the way I'd go. But I'd suspect he's highly likely to be neither for me. I think the fixtures that have come out have really strengthened my opinion on Danny Ings. On what I'm seeing, Palace, Tottenham, Burnley, West Brom, Chelsea, Everton holds no fears. So that's the one that's really got strengthened for me this morning in the fixtures. Is probably Danny Ings. A Reef says, hi, James. With Spurs have to play in Europa League qualification, what should we do with Spurs FPL assets? I genuinely think it will affect Premier League performance a lot. Thanks. There's another one we spoke about on our Patreon pod on Tuesday, Tottenham, where I said what I'd like Mourinho to do. So for those who don't know, after match day 1, Spurs are going to play in the League Cup, in Europe between match day 1 and 2. If they win in Europe, they will then play the following midweek in Europe and the League Cup. And if they win both those games, that happens the following week as well. Look, it's the start of the season. You need to give people minutes. I would like the idea that Mourinho has a squad of 25 and goes, I'm going to play that 11 in Europe, and I'm going to play another 11 in the League Cup. And it doesn't have to necessarily be first and second teams. I would match it. So I would play Kane in one game, Son in another game, for example. I would match the team up so it looked half a first team in both fixtures. That's how I'd want to treat it. Mourinho's desperate for a trophy. I don't think he's just going to throw the towel on either of these like Klopp did with the FA Cup last year, for example, and the League Cup, obviously. So it's interesting.
you know, suddenly then you're back in a position where you're just going, right, it says weekend, midweek, which with reduced pre-season this year, oddly enough, there could be some benefit in this to Spurs to be able to get a full squad of players up to match fitness quickly and above other clubs. This actually, in reverse way, could be a benefit. Now, does it benefit you from an FPL perspective? No, but I don't think there's much doubt that the guys I've mentioned, Dyer, Son, Kane, they're going to play in the Premier League anyway, right? So it doesn't matter. I would be amazed, for example, if you said, right, between game weeks 2 and 3, we've got a League Cup game, we've got a Europa League game. Kane's going to get rested for both. I don't think so. He's going to play one of them, but that's all right. Kane's used to playing twice a week. So's Sonny. Eric Dyer defensively doesn't matter. So in an odd way, there could be a blessing for this in Spurs. I'm not against it. I mean, whether I want to watch a Mourinho team 4 times in 8 days is a different fucking matter, but we'll see how we get on. Frank Sherman's in. So to Luke Porteous. Hi, guys. Stephen O'Brien. Hi, James. Have you any date on returning to work, or are you returning full-time FPL? I'm here, guys. Yeah, this is my job now, guys. I'm full-time on this now. So you keep saying, oh, James, you keep pushing. Yeah, I'm working on the content fucking day and night. So yeah, this is it for me now. In terms of returning to work and getting some work done in the garden in a couple of weeks, I'm probably going to need to go into the studio to record probably the first week of September or so. But it's not at the moment. It's not a necessity really for me to be going in and out of work, etc. So at the moment, I can generally do the majority of it from home. We know the audio quality and obviously the video quality we put out on YouTube would both be better if YouTube wasn't done via a Zoom call and if we wasn't recording the audio in different places. But I think people understand the situation at the moment of why it's a Zoom call. And I think nobody said anything about the audio, to be honest. So, and I'm doing it. It's not man-child. So I presume I'm getting on all right because nobody's in my ear saying the audio is terrible. So yeah, we're doing okay at the moment. I think that all the creators are working under certain restrictions at the moment, aren't they? So, but yeah, this is full time now. It's part of the reason why Patreon got set up was it's got to pay for me in the first instance, right? So, yeah, we're doing okay. Patrons flying. We're nearly up to 250 patrons now. We've set up our mini leagues and stuff for the new season. I think the guys are going to love that. We've got content coming all the time. Just what I mentioned on content. I'm sure someone may or may not ask it, but I'm going to get that question asked very, very soon. I will say it now. Correspondence. There will be an announcement on what we're doing with them this Saturday. Watch out for it. It's going to be good. Bradley Parker, who's my Wolves correspondent, says, don't trust Everton at all. They need so much done to them to make them a decent side. He's also saying defence double up possible for Wolves in October. Possible from the start, mate. Doc, Vinagre, yeah, why not, mate? And thoughts on waiting until game week 3 to get City players? Yeah, cool. Luke Porteous, any Fulham mids that are nailed on to play that could offer some good FPL potential points? We'll speak to Dara the Tinkerman soon. We'll see what he says. But Mitrovic is not expensive. It's 6 million. If you want a guy from Fulham, make it go that way. Paul Meehan, right on. Bradley, their midfield is horrific. He's referring to Everton. Tim Lum, with released fixtures, do you have any initial thoughts on how it will affect your Sky FF plans pre-overhaul? Now, I need to wait for that. I mean, for Sky, Tim, you've got to wait for them fixtures, really. So I'm not bothered that the game's not opened yet or anything. We've got an idea of price points we think we have anyway. So, yeah, it's all about them fixtures to see what's going to happen. Where they're going to lie. With obviously you can potentially have 3 or 4 captaincies in a game week, so that's massively important. I wouldn't get your headspace into Sky until the TV fixture announced fixtures, which we don't think will be for about a week or so. Seems to be the feeling. Would be great if it drops before the Sky podcast on Wednesday, but we think the TV fixtures might not be to around about this time next week, and it might only be that we only get, say, the first 4 game weeks, which is absolutely fine. That's all we need. Pushkar's in. Hello, mate. Says, I love the Spurs fixtures. Kane versus Son. Your take, Kane. FPL tips. Afternoon, James. Pillar's pin. With Liverpool's fixtures, are you swaying from the double defence? I don't think I'll go initially. No doubt in my mind. I said this yesterday. I couldn't care less if they had Man City 4 times over in the first 4 fixtures. Trent and Robbo being my team. Not a doubt. Rudy says, Son and Alba as placeholders for KDB and Bruno. Yeah, it's fine. You might find it difficult to get away from Son. Might keep looking at it and go, you might get to match day 3 Oh, it's Newcastle this week. I might hang around for one more. You might find it difficult to get away from some. And A says, James, help. I can't pick a captain. My 4-year-old daughter has a better success rate and she picks a captain based on which kit she likes. Any advice? Well, I had disastrous captaincy returns last year, so I'm not the best person to ask for that. I basically had about 100 and it was at least 100 points less on captaincy than Such and finished 7 points behind him. If I'd had the same captaincy returns as Such, I actually would have finished in the top 10k. It's easier said than done, right? So I'm probably not the best person to ask from a captaincy perspective, being very honest, because my success rate last year was not very good. There's things you look back in hindsight and think, oh, fucking hell, I captain Kevin De Bruyne 4 times. What I had last year was a very set plan on Kane and Sterling for the first, I think it was 12 game weeks or so, to captain them as a rotating, because City and Spurs fixtures really did rotate well for a long period. I think it was right up to November period last year. And it obviously didn't work out well. Spurs form really dipped. Sterling was being outscored by De Bruyne, etc., and wasn't in the best form, if you remember, from the first half of last season. So I probably need to go in with less of a preset plan in my mind like that, and just to identify it and go, right, I want to captain player X in game week 1, which right now for me is likely to be, I would guess, Aubameyang, Salah, or Trent Alexander-Arnold. One of the 3. It'll only be Trent if I don't go with Salah at the start. If I go with Salah at the start, it'd be a short-term move for me, I think. Literally probably move straight off for game week 2 to United. Would probably be part of my thinking, possibly as part of a -4. But then, yeah, that would probably help me justify my thoughts of going with him at the start. Right, I captain him against Leeds, boom, move off. The one thing I really don't like about captaining Liverpool on the opening day is I don't know enough about Leeds. Although that's also the same problem with Arsenal against Fulham. And I actually wonder if the closer we get, Danny Ings against Crystal Palace could be a great differential captain in game week 1. Eric Fordham, thanks for answering one last question at this early stage. Who are you liking more out of Morpay, Wood and Antonio for the 6.5 million forwards? Thanks again. I'm inclined to lean into Antonio now, I think, even though they've got the tougher run of fixtures because Burnley aren't playing in game week 1. And it might be that I'll make that move, even Antonio to Wood. If I'm set up properly with United and City at the start, I would look at someone like Wood for game week 2 and think no one's going to be there. But then am I rushing it for Leicester away? There's probably one that would wait till game week 3 anyway with Chris Wood. Really like Chris Wood. If Chris Wood... It's the same for Wood and Antonio. If you look at them historically in the amount of minutes they play, if you could get the 3,420 minutes out of them, it obviously doesn't need to be that many. If you can get 3,000 minutes out of them, let's say, then there is a strong possibility they could get towards 20 goals, both of them. So they're both well worth watching. I think Morpay has the scope to improve. Mitrovic clearly looks like he'll be talisman for Fulham as well. So wouldn't rule out any of them. And actually, like I said, that long stretch for Fulham, game week 2 to 10, no big 6 opposition. Mitrovic might be interesting, you know. Really, really might be. If I had to pick one now and just leave it, it would be Antonio still, in spite of West Ham's fixtures. Paul Recluse says, Fulham values good value around 5 minutes price point. They have a nice set of fixtures. Mentioning that as well. Paul Meehan says Fulham have 19 bad fixtures. To be fair, Paul, 38 fixtures might be right there. Marshall Matters, Aurea good with Spurs fixtures. I've covered this. Red Hot YT, who would you prefer? Doherty plus 4.5 million attacker or Mitrovic plus 4.5 million defender? Probably Mitrovic plus 4.5 million defender. I haven't seen them Fulham fixtures now, but don't rush into these decisions. FPL Hitman's in. Cole Norbury, which game week will the rearranged fixtures be? So if they're not in game week 1, we think the earliest is likely to be, as long as City and United progress in the League Cup, which then opens up possibilities if they don't. We think it could even be as late as like game week 16 or so. So wait and see. But if one of them goes out the League Cup, it opens up possibilities basically, depending on obviously what the other one does as well. But if City and United get to the quarterfinals of the League Cup, yeah, I think it's about game week 16. Ben Crellin, I'll have it all detailed for him. If you're not following Ben Crellin, then you need to sort your life out, honestly. Paul Meehan saying unknown so far. Carl Ben Quillen thinks most likely game weeks 18-19. There you go. Yeah, it's going to be late. FPL Integrity, what's your team looking like? A mess, mate. I've not looked at it this morning, so I'm not in any rush. Simon Smith, afternoon surge, triple Southampton, mental, McCarthy, KWP, Armstrong. It is when one of those three players isn't called Danny Ings, mate. You don't want McCarthy and KWP, I'm telling you. It's all right to have one. You do not want both of that, mate. Armstrong is a brilliant pick, by the way. Really, really good pick, I think. Scope to improve massively. Another one. Look at his minutes and his returns for that. He's very capable. Ronan says, hi, James. Have you thought about your potential captains for the first 4 to 6 game weeks? Nah. I mean, literally, when I just mentioned game week 1, that was off the top of my head. I've given it no thought. My brain a rest. I'm more bothered about doing the content for you guys. FPO telling Josh, with Leicester's early fixtures, do you feel like jumping on a defender? I know Evans and the fullbacks are out. Thomas Justin at 4.5. Nice clean sheet potential in early fixtures. I would not go anywhere near them. Trap. Screams trap. Leicester defensively are a mess. Evans suspended for the first 2 games. Chilwell likely leaving. Pereira unlikely to make the start of the season. Forget the fixtures. Do you see the sort of back four they might be putting on the pitch keeping clean sheets? I don't. Not on what I saw of them at the back end of last season. So no, Leicester defensively will not be in my fault unless they strengthen. Cole Norbury, why not doubles in game weeks 2 or 3? That's because you've got League Cup fixtures in both of those midweeks potentially. And obviously Europe for Tottenham as well. So the League Cup fixtures are in between those 3 game weeks. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4. That's it, straight week on week, round 2, round 3, round 4. That's why. So that's what I'm saying. It's only if City or United was to go out in round 3 of the League Cup, then obviously could theory be, I guess it's midweek matchday 3, isn't it? Where it would be round 4 of the Carabao Cup. They obviously can't play the fixture in the first one because their respective opponents, Aston Villa and Burnley, will be playing in the League Cup. So City and United can't go in there. That's the reason why. Bradley Parker says, hey, was 2-0 down, I'll have you know. You're talking about when you... Fucking hell, that's ages ago. There must be a lot of questions. I'll wrap through them very quick then. You're talking about when you beat Man City 3-2. Yeah, you were 2-0 down, but they also had a player sent off. Right, I'll fly through these quickly, guys. If you've got a question, I probably wouldn't bother answering it now because I probably won't get to you. I'll wrap this up in about 10 minutes or so. Hello, Red Hot YT. Another hoop saying, good afternoon. David Beaton, any thoughts on big at the bat? I'm tempted by taking 2 players from 3 separate teams for goals and defence, starting 5-3-2. I wouldn't rule out me starting with double Liverpool, double Wolves defensively. Wouldn't have an issue with that. And Another hoop saying FPL start with a bang. Joseph Fell student, Richarlison maybe. I think Vardy's underrated. Ben Miller saying morning. Marshall Maz, they got a manager who's a psychopath winning 8-2 and not smiling or slowing down. It's talking about Bayern Munich. Niz says Ings over Vardy. Yes, for me, mate. T-Tac, Poets here, your top scoring player from every team this year. Mate, I ain't got time. Sorry. Alex, hey, mate. Hope you're well. What do you think of a back 3 of Trent, AA, Vinagre, and a 4.5 to 5 million defender? Fine, although I'm not sure who AA is. Frank Sherman, when do you think we see the double game for the Manchester clubs? Covered. Perlo's pen. Thoughts on Mitrovic? Covered. And a first manager to be sacked in the Premier League. Roy Hodgson. Paul Meehan. Be careful with Vinagre. Alex, watch the transfer news from Wolves. We'll all be watching the transfer news from Wolves. We are where Wolves has shown interest in 2 left backs over the last week or so. FPL captains in. My graphics hero. And yes, the intention at the moment is to do the deadline streams come game week 1. There will obviously be 2.5 hours before the first kickoff of the day. So if it's on Saturday and the first kickoff's 12:30, the deadline stream will be 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. because it's an hour and a half for the deadline. Yay. Bree Sutcliffe, I know it's a mute question, but if you were allowed to play your free hit in game week 1, would you? No, it's a complete waste. Demetrius saying something about Koulibaly. I didn't realise how old he was, Koulibaly, by the way. He's 29, isn't he? I thought he was younger than that. But yeah, I expect him still to end up at City. Simon Smith said Leicester fixtures got me looking at Maddison, too risky. I'd prefer to look at the attacking Leicester assets than the defensive ones if you want to go into them. Neil Thompson says, afternoon, James. Looking forward to redrafting my initial team after the fixtures. Keep 2 big hitters and swap season goes on. Kind of covered that right near the start, Neil. FPL Hitman, post-lockdown former Liverpool assets, something to be cautious about. It's a squad which hasn't been refreshed for 2 years now, something to be very wary of. If they get Thiago Alcantara, that's one hell of a refresh, by the way. Michael Louis, hi James, first time tuning in live. Hello, mate. Thoughts on Lo Celso playing 10 for Spurs, both real life and FPL. Doesn't get enough attacking returns. Don't think he'd be good enough, and that's really critical. I'd really like him. He's a very good player. Will he be good enough for what Tottenham want to be? Not in my opinion. FPL asset? Absolutely no. And if you could change one rule in FPL, what would it be and why? One rule and why. I would make BPS points available and how they're earning them available live during the game. I suspect someone's going to come up with this data soon to make that work, actually. It won't be me, by the way. And Ace, if the transfer window shut today, who would finish in the bottom three? West Brom, Fulham, Palace. Notorious Nerds says Mitchell is a baller. Daniel saying Dortmund for life. Good for you on the yellow wall, mate. Dominic Jervis, hi James. What do you think of Greenwood and Foden? It's first choice picks in your team. If United don't strengthen, yes, Greenwood, but I'm always going to have the transfer window doesn't start till October the 5th, so I'm going to have Sancho in the back of my mind if it's not done by then, because I still think it could go right up to the deadline, or United look for someone else. So he's going to have a dip in form at some stage because he's a boy. It's natural. It won't be anything bad on him. He will have a dip at some stage. Natural. He's come in, been amazing. He is amazing, by the way. He will have a dip at some stage. Phil Foden should be playing for Manchester City now. Genuinely. He's better than some of the shit they're putting on the pitch. I use that term real. Phil Foden not to get on that pitch against Leon at the weekend. I don't know what he's thinking. I've no idea. Go and run the game for me, kid. Brilliant footballer. I'm just still not convinced he's going to equate to an FPL asset, though. I'm not convinced. He's a good price, though. It's a good price. He falls into the one to watch for me, I think. Adam France, would you take Matty Cash over Aurea? No, I wouldn't. J23, do you have a community non-money league to join this season? Yes, absolutely do. There is a free-to-enter mini league, which I did post on Twitter a little while ago. I will start putting it in the bios for the podcast as well. The winning prize for whoever wins that mini league, like it was for Martin Janssen, who finished 131st in the world last year, will be an invite onto an end of season Planet FPL podcast and tell us all about your great season. No cash reward though. That's only for patrons. Carl Norburn, genuinely, James, I have my own heart and Aurea double up. Carl, you need to lay off the fucking drugs, mate. Itadros, which Spurs defender do you reckon? Dyer, a man, Werner Kane, Jimenez, Albert Salah, Trent McCarthy, West Villas. You got too many players in there for me to be bothered to answer that, mate. Notorious Nerd, who are some of the good 4.55 million defenders for the start? Charlie Taylor is still absolutely fine, even though they're not playing. Vinagre, keep an eye on the situation. You might argue if you're looking at early wildcard, Arsenal defensively could be fine. And genuinely, yeah, absolutely. To be honest, throw Eric Dyer into that mix now. Dominic Jervis, well, James, good luck with it. I don't know what that's for, Dominic, but I appreciate it anyway. Ronan says, hi, James, will you be doing a review of All or Nothing Spurs? First 3 episodes, August 31st, on a Patreon podcast. It probably will fall into Tottenham, Ronan. Yeah, the people are going to demand I do something for it, so I will. Notorious Nerd, best keepers at 5 million and 4.5 million. 5 million, I think it's probably Leno. 4.5, I think it's Ryan. And then the double up with Barton. Carl Norby, well done on turning FPL into your job. Hope this doesn't feel like work. It did at times at the end of the season when there was football every single day, because watching the games felt like work. So I'm delighted it's majority going to go back to weekends only in terms of watching the game. I don't want watching football to feel like work, and it did during lockdown. But that shouldn't be the case now. John Welks, I'm thinking of De Bruyne to Alba, then benching Martial and Greenwood for St. Maximin Ferguson. I will swap out Alba for De Bruyne. There's too much going on there, John. I'm trying to wrap up the show. Apologies, pal. Feel free to jump in my DMs if you like. Luke B, is there cheap 4.5 million midfielder? None that particularly stand out. Prem tips, are you investing in City players between game weeks 2-6? If so, which game week are you hoping for? I probably won't hang about Kevin De Bruyne. I see. When will be told when United or City fixture? Be any idea? No, because it's probably going to depend on that, what I said with the Carabao Cup. Vish, Spurs attack as a trap? Yeah, probably. Chelsea Forever says, thoughts on Alioski. He's Leeds number 10, but plays left back, could go left wing, Lundstrom of the season. Yes, he's very, very interesting if he plays. I don't see him being first choice. But I'll wait and see what Andy Martin, FPL tacticians' thoughts on that are. But I suspect they will be the same. Alexander Beatrice, Souček for game week 1 punt. Kane or Son. Souček is fine. Kane or Son will be Kane. Wilf Sahar's in. Hello, mate. Still begging for an Arsenal move. Hey, mate, do you think Delhi is worth a shout? I'm tempted to get him as differential. Nope. And cheers, James. Prem tips, I'd steer away from Souček, especially just for 1 game week. Doesn't have to be for 1 game week, as I explained. Giovanni says, how is 5-4-1 formation? It's fine, mate. Scott Bailey says, Sky Sports say TV games released early next week. Oh, that would be great news, Scott. Scott's obviously a Sky player. Ian Wilson says, I agree, Mourinho plays negative football, but didn't Spurs score more goals per game under him than Poch last year? Can see them scoring enough to make their assets viable, even if it's not bucket loads. Then that's absolutely okay, Ian. I'm not saying don't buy Spurs players at the start. What I'm saying is I won't be. Chelsea forever. Newcastle got good first few fixtures. Double up Yedlin, Fernandez and Dubravka. Wow, love that. Brave. Not for me, mate. Yeah, Levy says, you don't think Kane could go higher this season? Yeah, listen, Harry Kane could win the Golden Boot, mate. It's not in question. It's never in question with Harry Kane. Zach Mitro, the best cheap forward, maybe. Will says, thoughts on Rashford. I've got my eye on all the United forwards. Joe Finley Ballas says, love you. I love you too, Joe. Ian says, haha, fair enough. Good luck to you, James. And we'll end with Paul Meehan says, thanks for the fun stream, James. Back to endless tinkering. Been going on for an hour. Thanks for everybody who joined in with the chat. Much, much appreciated, guys. I don't know how to turn these bloody streams anymore. They've complete. You can still change it on the old dodgy webcam, how to do it. YouTube, when you had graphics, seriously, get it back so we can end the stream. Just one thing, because I see Giovanni mention it at the bottom. Werner a must-have. And the reason I've answered that particular question is no player in FPL is essential. I'm fucking sick and tired of hearing that word. Nobody is essential. Get over it. Right, guys, patrons, about an hour or two from now, we'll have a quiz out for you on Champions League finals, 1993, to 2019. Some good fun on that. Tomorrow, we'll be back, main podcast available to everybody, where we're going to be taking a deeper dive and look into fixtures, longer periods, etc. Once we've proper had the time to assess it fully for both clubs. And on Monday, we're going to look at chip strategy a little bit as well. Also for patrons, tomorrow we'll be launching our differential show. We're looking at some differentials. We're talking about some of the things me and Suj will be doing as head-to-heads, what we're doing with our mini leagues this year. That's all to come tomorrow. Saturday, eyes on Twitter. There will be an announcement about the correspondence. You'll fucking love it. I know it. Right, that's it. For the benefit of the audio, ciao for now. Cue music, please, man child. Thank you very much, everyone.